Hello, hello, welcome in, welcome in. Hello, hello. Hello, everybody, welcome in. We're doing some more anatomy and physiology. We're doing the endocrine system. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, welcome in. We're doing some anatomy and physiology questions. We're going to do the endocrine system. I just was live. I did the cardiovascular system questions and kind of kidney hormones. Yeah, I think I have some questions about kidney hormones in there. But we can go over some of those as well. We'll get started here in just a couple minutes, just so we can get some people in here. But yeah, we can do some kidney hormones as well. We can do this before we kind of get started. Yeah, I guess while we get people joining here, we can cover some of those. When are you going to do biology? Do you want a biology live stream? Or I've been working on, I believe someone asked about like biology questions and whatnot. I've been working on a video for biology. I should have that up either probably tomorrow. Video. Probably tomorrow. I worked on that a little bit today. But we do, for one of our hormones here for the kidneys, we do have renin. This is what is going to regulate blood pressure. I'm going to abbreviate that BP. The trigger for this, so low blood pressure triggers renin. We also have low sodium or sympathetic nervous system, so SNS. So the function to how it regulates blood pressure here is the RAAS system, which stands for renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. Essentially what this does is this converts angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. And then it is converted to angiotensin 2. And then this increases aldosterone from adrenal glands. Essentially promoting sodium, so increasing plus H2O retention. Alright, I'll leave that up there for just a moment. Just checking the comments real quick. Hey, how you doing? Thank you. What was my grade in biology? I got an A in biology. Thank you everybody for joining. Thanks for liking the live. It's good to see you guys here. I'm using GoodNotes to write my notes. Thank you everybody for joining. Were we, Brendan, you were asking about some of the kidney hormones. Oh my god, how did I do that? I was studying a lot. In the video, I will definitely put that in there. But honestly, a lot of studying, a lot of I had a great study partner for biology. We went back and forth, and we would explain a lot of processes, a lot of flashcards for like cell biology, going over the processes like photosynthesis, cellular respiration, things like that. But I do have some anatomy and physiology questions for us to go through for the endocrine system. I wrote that in here. Thanks for joining, and thanks for following. Oh, you're currently preparing for the MCAT. Awesome. How's it going? When are you taking your MCAT exam? It's going? Yeah, no, I figured. March 21st, awesome. Less than a month. Well, good luck. You definitely got this. I know it's a lot to study for, but you definitely got this. But we can go ahead and get started here. Maybe we got 20. All right, so Brian, were you good on the renin part here? We'll get a few more people in here, and then we'll start with some questions. So there's renin. And the next one here we have put the list here. We have erythropoietin. Or we're going to abbreviate EPO. This is going to be responsible for stimulating red blood cells. So what triggers erythropoietin? It's essentially going to be low O2 levels, also known as hypoxia. And these are produced by interstitial cells of peritubular capillaries of the kidneys to stimulate the red blood cell function or production. This essentially stimulates bone marrow to produce more red blood cells, so increase blood cells. It also increases O2 carrying capacity of blood. And then it can also be used in the clinic. So we can use it to treat anemias as well. And that was erythropoietin, hormone of the kidney. Were we good on that one? Let me check. When is my next live? My next live is tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So 10 a.m. EST. This is actually going to be on some psychology. A lot of people have a psych midterm coming up, so this should be a psych midterm prep. And then Friday at 10 a.m. So Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a Tease/Hezi review. Taking A&P next for my prereqs. Awesome. Good luck with your prereqs. If you're just joining, thank you for joining the live. Thanks for liking the live. The more that you guys like the live, the more we can get this out to people. All the notes that we take are going to be on my Instagram afterwards. The recording will be on YouTube. The link to that is in my bio. And then any study guides that you might need if you're having trouble making notes or you're just not really sure how to go about it, I do have study guides on my website, which is linked in my bio as well. How many students are in undergrad at your school? I went to William & Mary for undergrad, so there's like 6,000, I think. I believe. But, Brandon, do you still want to keep going on the hormones? We have like 5 we can cover. We can kind of see what does everyone want to do. I do have questions available, but someone did ask about going over hormones of the kidneys. I was gonna see if you knew my friend who went there. That's a lot. Yeah. There were a lot of people there. So did we want to hear more of some endocrine hormones that are produced by the kidneys, or do we want to start with the questions? I have these notes when I was in college. You did great. Awesome. Thank you. All right. But we can continue explaining some of these, and then we can get to some questions. But next we have calcitriol, which is our active vitamin D. So this is essentially to regulate calcium plus phosphate. Oh boy, who's currently taking ANP2? It's no joke. You're definitely right about that. It is definitely no joke. Thanks for following, thanks for joining, and thanks for liking the live, guys. I really appreciate it. But anyway, for calcitriol here, it is triggered by our parathyroid hormone, and this is released as a response to low calcium levels. And then this is produced by the proximal tubule cells of the kidney. I mean, how do I even retain that all when I have so many more classes? Practice. Honestly, like kind of what I'm doing here where I'm explaining it out loud and drawing it out. How do I memorize everything? Essentially, like I said, just kind of what we're doing here. So here we have calcitriol, and what are we particularly worried about here? We're worried about what its function is, and it's functioning to regulate calcium and phosphate. So when you think about like anatomy and physiology, yes, active recall. Active recall definitely, like when you're going through recalling this information out loud or explaining it in a certain process. For just joining, thanks for joining, and thanks for all the follows. I appreciate it. But essentially here, what we have for physiology. So I'll get back to that explanation here in just a sec. But we have anatomy, and we have physiology. So anatomy is like what and where stuff is. How would you say to study like what is active recall? Active recall is essentially retrieving information from your memory in order to apply it to a certain question or scenario. So I can give an example here in just a second, but we're going to break down what anatomy and physiology is. So anatomy is something is what something is or where something is. And you can learn this with flashcards for active recall, and this for where you can practice labeling. But what about physiology? Physiology is necessarily like how something works. Read over your notes for 20 minutes, close the book, write it down in one color. Yeah, essentially, yeah. So, we have how something works. So, we have something's function. And in the middle here, it's how it functions. So this is what causes this to function. What causes. And then, so our function is how does it function? So when it functions normally, what is the result of this normal functioning? And then when we have pathology, what causes dysfunction? And then it's how does this not function? And then down here is what is the result of dysfunction? What is result of dysfunction? Does that make sense for everybody? I have my first physio exam tomorrow. Awesome. Good luck on your physiology exam. Does that answer that question? About like how to study and retain for information. Thanks for following. Thanks for joining, everybody. I really appreciate it. We're doing some endocrine stuff. What is the function of the syncytotrophoblast in embryonic development? Essentially, that is just something. Let me put it down here. So we have the syncytotrophoblast. Essentially, it like is responsible for like directing. Put directing. Implantation. Plus forming a placental barrier. And also it produces our HCG, which is our human chorionic gonadotropin. Then also, because we're forming our placental barrier, we also have our maternal fetal exchange for nutrients, and then obviously plus immunity function. I use a small whiteboard to actively record. Yes, whiteboards are every man's best friend and woman's best friend. Thank you for sharing the live. Again, back to our... I'm impressed. Did you know the answer to that, or were you just asking to see if I knew it? Or were you just actually have a question on it? We're not testing my knowledge right now. We're trying to help you guys out. I'm totally fine. You don't need to test me. But anyway, so we're back to the calcitriol here. We're regulating calcium and phosphate, and how are we doing that? Essentially here we have, we are increasing calcium plus phosphate absorption in the kidneys. Alrighty, so hi, Elliot. Are you able to recall all the bones from your head? For the most part, yes. I can pretty much recall, I would say, almost all of them now. There might be like a few landmarks here. I definitely trip myself up on like some landmarks sometimes, for sure. I love this. Awesome. Okay, so I was going over let me see. Brendan, are you still here? Did you still want me to continue on with some of the hormones for the... I recently purchased chapters 1 through 7. When I print them out, they are hard to read. What am I doing wrong? Sometimes you have to zoom in on them. They are a PDF, so sometimes you have to decrease the margins. But if you're having trouble, send me an email and I can maybe fix that for you. So I do have endocrine system questions. Can I go over blood flow through the heart? Yeah, I can go over that real quick. All right, so whenever I practice going over blood flow through the heart, I'll try to decrease margins. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. If not, send me a message and I can try and fix that for you. So we have our right atria, our right ventricle, left atria, left ventricle. And I always draw my heart like this. We have our apex. And always start off here. And then we have our aorta. Alrighty. and then we have our lungs up here. So whenever you're practicing blood flow to the heart, I would just recommend kind of just drawing like a little crappy diagram. I am no artist, but I have drawn this out so many times. So let's start from systemic circulation. So this is our superior vena cava and our inferior vena cava. So blood flow is going to come from the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava into our right atrium. And then once it enters there, again, this is deoxygenated blood. So I always put deoxy whenever I'm writing it. So again, we have deoxygenated blood going into the right atrium. And then we have a valve here called the tricuspid valve, which I'll get into here, how to memorize these valves. So we have the tricuspid valve separating the right atria from the right ventricle, and we have a bicuspid valve from the left atria to the left ventricle. And a good little mnemonic that I always kind of have for that is tri before you bi. So our tricuspid and our bicuspid, essentially here. So we move through our tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. That is going to go through our pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery. So again, artery is always away from the heart. This is the exception here. For vena cava, right atrium, pulmonary valve, right ventricle. Yeah, so tricuspid, right ventricle, pulmonary valve, pulmonary artery. Then we go to the lungs where we get oxygenated. And then once we are oxygenated, we return back through the pulmonary vein. We get to our left atrium. We go through our bicuspid valve. And then we go through our aortic valve into our aorta. And then out to the rest of the body. And then obviously, let me get back here. And also along the heart, you have your cardiac arteries, and then you have cardiac veins and sinus, and those also drain into the right atria. So right atria gets its blood from the coronary sinus, the superior vena cava, and the inferior vena cava. All right, was that good for the heart explanation? Did anyone else have any other questions? That's definitely how I recommend going through. Like, just draw like a really, really crappy heart diagram, and then just kind of practice drawing your little arrows. Hold on one sec. I see some comments popping up. Hold on. My thing is glitching out. I just gotta make sure. I'll see them in a second. Yeah, I guess we can do some heart stuff. All right, so the cardiac rhythm. All right, move on to that next. Again, I also I do have study guides for these as well. They're linked in my bio for the cardiac system for sure. If you guys need any help with that. So the cardiac rhythm essentially is started by our SA node, which is starting in our right atria. So this generates our normal sinus rhythm, going down to our AV node, which is kind of between. So I always put between the atria and ventricles near the septum. That's the way I always draw it out. And then it moves along to the bundle of His, which Excuse me. This is what generates the AV node into the intraventricular septum. And then it goes down to the Purkinje fibers. And that's our final distribution of our cardiac rhythm from the electrical properties. But did you want to go over the ECG wave from the cardiac rhythm just so I can make sure? Which is crazy, there's one. Okay. Perfect. What was the next question? If I miss anything, I have a midterm tomorrow and this is part of it. Awesome, I'm glad that this is helping. If you're just joining, thank you for joining. Do I have notes for the immune system chapter? I do, yes. It's lymphatics. Yes, can't fail my midterm. Thanks, no problem. What was the next question? If I do miss your question, feel free to comment it again. Can I explain ATP? What exactly about ATP? ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It's the body's main form of energy. How did I study for chemistry? Pretty much practicing all the problems. Flashcards, learning the different type of inverse relationships and whatnot. Different type of blood vessels. Yes, we can do blood vessels. So essentially we have arteries. Let me do this in purple, just to assimilate. Capillaries. And then we have veins. And then in the middle, we have arterioles, which are small arteries. And then we have venules, which are smaller veins. So this carries blood away from the heart, and this carries blood to the heart. So we put our heart. Again, some people have a misconception that artery means has oxygen in it. Again, that's false because we know our pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs. So this is where our gas exchange occurs. This is what's known as our exchange network. So this is where all of the different gases, nutrients, waste exchange occurs between the blood vessels and tissues. The immune system is in. Well, let me just make sure I'm getting some questions. Bella, was this good for the going over the blood vessels, or was there anything in particular else you wanted to see about that? ECG rhythms, please. What was my grade in chem? What did I get in chem? I think I got a B+ in Chem 1, and then I got an A- in Chem 2. In Chem 1, let me see, love this, thank you for the refresher. Yeah, of course. How can I keep my GPA up? Science is so hard for me. I would definitely get a tutor. And practice a lot more. Practice. Definitely focus a lot on that. Someone asked. Ain't no way I'm on this unit too. Alright, so ECG rhythms. Awesome. If you're just joining here, we're answering some anatomy and physiology questions. Let me know what questions you have here. Definitely. Thank you for liking live. Thanks for following. All that stuff. So, let me just make sure I'm not missing any questions. I failed English in high school. Would I be able to go over muscle legs? Yeah, we can go over that in just a little bit here. I want all this to make sense. It just doesn't. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry about that. All right, so our ECG. The best way to explain an ECG. P, Q, R, S, T complex here. So, what this looks like, we have draw this. Alrighty. So this is our P, Q, R, S, and T wave. So this is what's going to show up on your ECG. So our P wave here is what's going to represent atrial depolarization, which is where we are generating an action potential. Essentially, we are contracting the atria here. Our PR interval, which is, I'll just use my highlighter. So we go from here to here. This is where we, this is the time from atrial depolarization to ventricular depolarization, which is when our action potential generates in the ventricles. So the ventricles are going to contract. And then our QRS complex is also a representation of our ventricular depolarization. And then kind of hidden within this is our atrial repolarization, which we're returning back to membrane resting potential. And then our ST segment here. This is where we're going to have, excuse me, this is the time between our ventricular repolarization, or sorry, depolarization to repolarization. So I'm just going to abbreviate this to depolarization to repolarization. And then our T wave essentially is what represents our ventricular repolarization, getting our ventricles back to resting potential. Alrighty. How was that? Let me see. I'm going to look back at the comments. Okay, coronary circulation. Pulse pressure is greatest within the left ventricle, mainly because whenever you're generating, so the left ventricle has to get, it is responsible for single-handedly getting all the blood out and pumping it into the rest of the body. It has to get out to the rest of the body. So there has to be a lot of it's pressure that would build that up. This helped so much. Awesome. I'm so glad it helped. Again, let me just go up here real quick. The notes that I take from these lives are on my Instagram afterwards. TikTok doesn't let me link it for some reason. And then if you want to watch the recording of this, it'll be on my YouTube, which is linked in my bio. And then if you want any of my study guides, they are on my website. Okay. My MP2 lab professor, that's not my favorite. I'm so sorry about that. I did not like my AMP2 lab professor, if that makes you feel any better. But thanks for joining. Thanks for following. Thanks for liking the live. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys sharing. Can I do the kidney next, nephron? What about it specifically? Did we want to do P wave? So P wave is atrial contraction. Yes. Depolarization. Let me explain real quick. So depolarization is when you are generating an action potential, meaning you are contracting. Think of this is when sodium is rushing in, and then repolarization is when our potassium is exiting. Do we all want to go? Are we good with going over the kidney next? I see some couple things here, but can we narrow it down? Depolarization is just another word for contraction. Yes, that is true. What is this topic about? This topic particular is going over cardiovascular physiology. That was the next question. So, how long does it take to learn all the muscles in the body? Kind of depends, honestly. I personally think you can do it in one day. I think in a realistic time frame, probably about a week. I think it's about a week is a realistic time frame. Thanks for following, everybody. I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining. Just while we're on here explaining what's going on in depolarization. And then I'll move on. I just want to make sure while we're on the topic that I don't have to re-explain anything. But if we have our graph here, and again, we're going over cardiac potential. So if we're looking at it, again, we have that weird little plateau thingy. So once we reach a certain threshold potential, we are going to generate an action potential, which is essentially where we have sodium rushing in, causing our depolarization. And then we have this plateau here, which is different from a normal action potential. This is when we have calcium coming in, binding to troponin, generating our sliding filament and all the muscle contraction, things like that, which is a whole thing in its own. But then we have to get back to our resting membrane potential here. And how that happens is potassium has to leave, which is what our repolarization is. Alrighty. Immune study guide. My immune system study guides are in the lymphatics chapter. They're virtually the same thing. So we needed this last semester. So sorry. Yeah, I didn't do lives last semester. This is good notes. Someone had a question. Sometimes my thing doesn't load. So when calcium gets too high, potassium. Let's put it in here. It's called hyperkalemia, which is increased potassium. Essentially what that does is the T wave is going to be a lot more like tall and peaked instead as a result. Thank you for the 2 roses, Naily, if that's how you say your name. I apologize. Did I just scroll with your Apple Pencil? No, I cannot scroll with my Apple Pencil. It's it will make a thing. It makes the lines. Okay, thank you. Can I talk about blood pressure? What particularly about blood pressure do we want to see? Maybe I'm just tripping. Oh, no. Yeah, no, definitely not. My thing definitely doesn't let me do that. Thank you for following, everybody. I appreciate it. Is this contraction for muscles? This is contraction for cardiac muscle. Thank you for the rose, Saved by Grace. Appreciate you. Thanks for following, everybody. I really appreciate you guys. What is systolic and diastolic? So, going over blood pressure. Hopefully this answers the other person's blood pressure question. So essentially we have our systolic and our diastolic. So our systolic is what is normally on top. So 120 over 80. So our systolic pressure is always on top, diastolic on the bottom. So the faint definition of systolic blood pressure this is when the heart is contracting. So this is the pressure in the arteries when the heart contracts. So heart contracts, so this represents the pressure when the heart contracts. And then this, the diastolic pressure, this is when the heart relaxes. So this is the indication of what the pressure is when the heart relaxes. Was that a good explanation? Before we move on to our next topic. What study guide should I use for anatomy in physiology and nursing school? Hopefully my study guides. You can definitely use mine. Mine are from, like, you can use them if you're pre-nursing, pre-med, exercise science, things like that. Thank you for the rose, Priscilla. I really appreciate you guys. I really appreciate all of you guys. You guys are awesome. I love doing these lives with you guys. I appreciate you guys liking the live, following, participating. EMT, yeah. They can be good for EMT, I believe. I would definitely check to see like what, particularly in the descriptions of all the study guides, I have all the topics I cover. But if there's anything that there's not in there, you can always reach out to me and I can give that to you. I wanted to be sure before I purchased. Yeah, like I said in the description, there's all the topics. But 3 weeks in massage school. Oh, awesome! Well, congratulations on being in massage school. No, they're not free study guides. No. But I do TikTok videos. Like if you message me and you want a video for free, I do those for free. Can I explain MAP? Hopefully you're talking about mean arterial pressure. Is that correct? Is that what you mean by? Okay, we'll check your page out. Thanks. Yeah, no problem. Just send me a message if you want some sort of video or explanation. Like I can make a video on all this stuff too if you'd like. I do that for free, so following this without a doubt. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Having such a hard time with anatomy and physiology. I'm studying terminology. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys as well. Thanks for following. Yes, okay, so I can go over mean arterial pressure real quick. So mean arterial pressure, so MAP, is mean arterial pressure. So essentially this is the average blood pressure in a person's arteries during one cardiac cycle. This typically represents like perfusion to certain like vital organs and stuff. Essentially, it has like a calculation, which I'm gonna look that up. Actually, I want to make sure I have that right. So the equation is MAP is equal to diastolic blood pressure plus 1/3 of systolic blood pressure minus diastolic blood pressure. And this is important because it is determining whether patients are getting enough blood flow or too much blood flow. And they have it has very high clinical significance. So low would equal something like shock or some sort of hemorrhage or heart failure or like sepsis. A higher mean arterial pressure would be like hypertension hypertension, stroke risk, increased like cardiac work, something like that. Alrighty. Can I talk about Rh negative for a pregnant mother and Rh plus for fetus? I absolutely can. Again, if I missed your question, please just put it in there. I definitely will try to get to everybody's question, no doubt. I have no problem doing that. So Rh is a protein factor, essentially. People were either positive or they are negative. Essentially, if a... how to explain this? Again, this is also, on red blood cells. So, like, if a Rh mother has, like, an Rh negative mother has an Rh plus fetus, the immune system may recognize the baby's blood cells as foreign. So this has to do with our immune response. Does that make sense? So during pregnancy, like fetal blood can mix with mother's blood, and the immune system can attack each other, essentially. It's not like an issue in like first pregnancies, but future pregnancies. It is... Does that kind of make sense? Like more so if they're opposite. The mother's antibodies attack baby. Hopefully that helped. Do I teach pathophysiology? Yeah, I do. I can. I haven't really been putting stuff out about it lately just because I don't have everything quite organized for it yet. But I'd be more than happy to get it together if people let me know. Yes, and post-birth and given time. Yes, thank you. What app is that? This is GoodNotes. So if the mom has Rh blood type, her blood attacks baby's blood. It would essentially, yes. Like if these are opposites, so if a mother's negative and the baby's positive, yes. Basically, it just creates like hemolytic diseases in newborns. So Rogaine is like what's used to prevent that. Stuff like that. Thanks. Can I go over the nerves of the eyes? How do you help your brain remember all the terminology for anatomy and physiology? I kind of went over this a little earlier. I'll do a quick explanation if you're just joining us. But essentially, this is how I go about studying anatomy and physiology, and how I went about it. So you kind of have to separate them into their own categories, right? Anatomy is what and where something is. So for what something is, I always kind of made flashcards, and I would practice those. And then for where stuff was, I would always practice labeling. For physiology is pretty much just like how something works. So we have certain systems, like your cardiovascular system has a function to pump blood throughout the body. So how does that function? What causes it to function normally, and what's the result of a normal function? Essentially, when you get into like pathophysiology and whatnot, we're having abnormal functioning. So what is causing dysfunction? How is it not functioning? And then what is the result of dysfunction is essentially pathology, essentially. Genesis, awesome. Thank you for the 10 roses. Appreciate it. Got an 82 out of 100 on my skeletal system exam. Awesome. That's good, Sophia. Were you happy with that or no? How do I study physiology? Because I spend so much time studying but can't get a good grade. Basically, taking all this, what I just explained, and you essentially want to explain it out loud. So when you Like we went over blood flow through the heart. Go ahead on a whiteboard or a piece of paper and draw like a really crappy diagram of a heart and practice explaining it out loud. Explain it out loud. Like blood flow from superior, inferior vena cava, right atrium, etc. We went over the PQRST wave, the ECG. Go through and talk about the QRS wave. Talk about stuff. Tips on how to remember the brachial plexus, please. Yes, I do have some pretty good tips for that. Hold on one sec. I think I had a good diagram for that. Hold on. So, for the brachial plexus, I always kind of practice like drawing it out. So you have C5, C6, C7, and C8, and then you have T1. Let's draw these out. Here you see. So then these kind of go all the way down. I'm trying to find my diagram here so I don't get it wrong. But your T8 and T1 split together. These split. These split. I always kind of recommend like pretty much just doing this, like drawing out, like you have your musculo cutaneous, and then axillary, median, oh geez, radial, and your ulnar. So practice going through and like, you know, doing the different branches and things like that, and just keep practice drawing the brachial plexus in this form. And that'll definitely help you remember that. Alrighty. Do I go live every day? Yes, I go live for every day from Sunday to Friday. Give me 1 second. I'm following back up on some comments. If you're just joining, thank you. We're going over some anatomy and physiology questions. I appreciate you guys liking the live, for joining. Everything, if you're just joining here, all the notes that we take during this will be on my Instagram. The recording of it will be on YouTube, linked in my bio. And then all the study guides that I had while I was in A&P are on my website. Alrighty. So do we have any more questions here? This is good notes. What are you reviewing? Thanks for following. Thanks for sharing the live, guys. I really appreciate you guys. If I missed any comments, please let me know what we'd like to see. Can I go over innate immunity? Yes. So innate immunity is essentially like the first line of defense. So this is like non-specific. So non-specific. And it's also fast acting. And it does not require previous exposure. So essentially here, this is like what is present at birth. It's our natural defense system. It has immediate response. Attacks any pathogens. It doesn't require memory or anything like that. Essentially, this is like our physical barriers, like our skin, our cellular defenses, like our like white blood cells, our natural killer cells, our mast cells, basophil cells. We have chemical defenses, things like that. Let me see. Can we do veins, arteries? We kind of just did that, so I'm just going to scroll back up here. Essentially, we have arterioles, arteries, capillaries, and veins. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Veins carry it to the heart. Capillaries is where our exchange of nutrients occurs, exchange of waste, things like that. And then arterioles are smaller arteries. Venules are smaller veins. Give me 1 second. Can you take A&P class online? Yeah, you can take them online. There's some online A&P classes. Any helpful studies for online college anatomy students? I think the study habit should stay the same as you would in a normal class. I think online you just have to be a lot more disciplined with following along with your lectures and things like that. Any tips for remembering the veins in the arms? I definitely recommend labeling. I have a blood vessels chapter where you can use it and cover up some of the things. But what I did here, this is how I memorized it all. I went through and I made a little diagram and things like that, and practiced labeling it. And a memorization for the bones and ligaments in the foot. Practice labeling. Practice labeling them for sure. Yes, I'm taking A&P class online. This is more so like college anatomy, so like undergrad level anatomy. Thanks for following, everybody. Thanks for joining. Oh, give me 1 second here. It's going to make me do this inactivity thing for TikTok. Of course, it's going to say unedited. All right, there we go. Verified my activity, guys. Alrighty. What did we want to see next? Again, sometimes I do miss questions just from all the comments, so if there's anything that you want to see, please let me know. I'm more than happy to put it in here. I did have some multiple choice like practice questions for the endocrine system plan, but we can also not do that. We can do those, or we can do whatever you guys want to see. Some of these we've mainly been going over A&P 2 topics. But we can do A&P 1 topics as well. Groupon says can everyone hear me just fine? Hello. Some of this stuff is on the MCAT. You can hear me? Is it just the one person who's having trouble hearing me? Yes, I can hear you. Okay. We can do some cranial nerves real quick. Is there anything in particular that we want to see about cranial nerves before I go into it? Just kind of like what they are and things like that. Like what are their functions, innervations, and stuff. We're kind of going over both A&P 2. What has been the hardest system for me? Honestly, it just kind of came from not really enjoying it, but I did not enjoy the respiratory system. MCAT, some of these topics are going to be on the MCAT, yeah. But this isn't specifically MCAT prep. Ways to remember? Okay. So, this is how I remembered. This is my big mnemonic. And then also, I do have a cranial nerve study guide as well. I'll put that in. In my bio. So you can get like the detailed things, everything. But my mnemonic here is once one takes the anatomy final. Very good. Vacations are here. And then we can go over the nerves that are on it. But you also have to know like what type of nerve, like if it's sensory or like motor, or if it's both. And my mnemonic for that is some say marry money, but my brother says big brains matter most. So these are my two mnemonics that I use to remember these. Let me just check the comments real quick. Thanks, I haven't seen any of this in AMP1. Oh, he's an AMP god. I try to be. I loved AMP, so thanks for sharing. Thanks for liking the live, guys. I appreciate it. But again, these are, if you want these more in specific, they're in my study guide. But this is the mnemonic. The O is for olfactory, so olfactory, optic, oculomotor. I always hated. I know there are a lot of people who had like songs. Dude, I hated the songs. I thought that was such a waste of time to remember. I hated hearing my classmates sing that stupid song. Oh my god. I heard it every dang day. It was so annoying. Don't annoy your classmates with the cranial nerve song. Jeez. But anyway, trochlear, trigeminal, abducens, facial, various vestibular, cochlear. G for good is the glossopharyngeal. I'm just going to abbreviate just to get through these a little quicker. Vagus, accessory, and then we have our hypoglossal. Again, in the first letter of all these, so like sensory, motor, both, sensory, both, motor. Did that help whoever asked about the cranial nerves? I learned vacations are heavenly. Yeah, they're interchangeable. They're both, they both start with an H. So, cranial nerve song on Spotify literally saved my test last week. No, don't listen to the cranial nerve song. How about I need to know about transport? What about transport? Yep. What do we want to see next before we go here? The sternocleidomastoid innervated by 11? Yes, it is. The accessory nerve. Membrane, transport, and active and graded potential. Yeah, we can do that. Do we know specifically, is it like a neuron action potential? Or I can go over, so for action potentials, I did just do, did I miss the endocrine system? No, I haven't done the questions for those yet. Yes, I have the mnemonic here, for, Allie. I did have a video on my page on active and graded potentials, so I'm not going to explain that in the live. But we can go over the membrane transport. But essentially, what we have here is we have simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion. And then we have osmosis, which all of these are a form of passive transport, which means it does not require ATP, so no ATP or energy. Simple diffusion is when we go from a high concentration to a low. Facilitated diffusion is when we use transport proteins or like channels. So like channels, proteins. Osmosis is when we just have water to a high concentration. And then for active transport, we have primary, secondary, and vesicular. Active, so need ATP or energy. Primary is essentially let me see how to explain this. The example is like the sodium potassium pump. So it's like maintaining resting potential. So we are like maintaining resting potential. Maintain RP. And secondary goes against the gradient. So then vesicular is whenever we like engulf material. Which is like phagocytosis. Alrighty. Do we have any other questions? I'm currently taking AMP1. Oh, good luck in AMP1. It's a rough topic. So does that help for the modes of transport? This is literally what we were learning about. Perfect. On the QRS wave, is the atrial relaxation hidden? Yes, it is. I have it in here. So atrial repolarization is hidden within the QRS complex. Thank you. I've been overwhelmed by everything instead of doing a little. Yeah, that's kind of like how I always put them together. Just like a little like thing here, like categorize them by passive and active. Alrighty, what's next, guys? Did we? Chad, we're gonna do. No one. Whenever I started the live, no one was really interested in the endocrine questions. So we did a little bit of endocrine stuff, but not particularly. So I kind of just went off in a different direction because at the time nobody had wanted them. So I moved into answering questions of whatever people wanted. What did we want to move into next? AMP2 question mark. What about AMP2? We can do either one. We can do AMP1, AMP2. What time do I usually go live? It kind of depends. So tomorrow I'm gonna do tomorrow 10 a.m. EST, and we're doing some psych stuff, and then Friday at 10 a.m. EST, we're doing T's/Hezi review. Do I have any study tips to give? I studied by doing flashcards on my exam, ended up with a 70. So just doing flashcards, I have never really felt like has been enough. If we're talking about, if we're referring to anatomy and physiology, I explained this earlier. Flashcards are only good, in my opinion, for what something is. Learning definitions. Practicing labeling is perfect for where something is. And then for physiology is like how something works. So it's a lot more complex, essentially. And I feel like the way that you should go about explaining, you should be able to explain this out loud without looking at your notes. Explain without notes. My philosophy with studying is that if you're looking at the material, you're not studying. Your ability to learn something and retain something is based on your ability to explain it or know it without looking at a reference, essentially. That's my best study tip. But I am going to be ending the live here soon. But were there any quick questions here before I go in the last 5 or so minutes here? Thanks for the insight on study tips. No problem. I have plenty of them. But that's essentially what they stem from. But does anyone have any quick questions? Again, the notes that we took on here will be on my Instagram afterwards. If you want to rewatch the recording, if you missed anything, I will put this on YouTube. Things like that. Anatomy, I got an A. Awesome. Okay, thank you. Taking my first physiology course and everything is so new. Yes, I know. Everything is so vast. But tomorrow we're going to do some psych, but afterwards we'll do some A&P as soon as we're done. Thanks for sharing the live. Thanks for joining. Thanks for liking the live. Thanks for all your gifts. Again, I have my study guides on my website. They're very helpful. They're exactly what I used when I was in anatomy and physiology. They're what got me an A. But I can answer any quick questions here before I go. I'll be live again tomorrow. They're not free, no. But all my videos are free and the YouTube's free. These lives are free and everything. If there's anything in particular that you'd like to see in a video, you just have to send me an email. I'm actually going to put my email in here. And I'll make a video for you for sure. That stuff is all free. But send me an email if you want some sort of video made for you or anything like that. Yes, I'm gonna be ending the live. Yeah, I'm gonna end the live now. I've been on live since 9:30. So, but I'll be live again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I apologize. I know I've been live for a while, ready for bed, to be honest. But I appreciate all you guys following. Please give me a follow if you want to see some more anatomy and physiology content. And I'm more than happy to make some other stuff. Like tomorrow, I'm going over psych. I'm making some bio stuff tomorrow. I'm more than happy to make anything else that you guys want to see. But I did put my email down below. It's also on my website. If you want to send me some sort of requests of a topic you'd like to see on a live or a video you'd like to see, I definitely prioritize my email. Thank you for the rose, Pinelli. I appreciate you a lot. Thanks for liking the live and everything, guys. But again, we'll be live again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Definitely follow me for some more content. I try to do something every day, whether it's a post, whether it's a live or anything like that. So you will see something from me every single day. Thank you for the 2 more roses. I really appreciate you. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you guys. You guys make this so fun to do. Were there any more quick questions here before I go? I just want to make sure. Can I talk about neurons? Not in the live. I can do that tomorrow if you end up. I can make a video on it as well. Like I said, send me an email. Thanks. Have a good night, man. You too. Yeah, you have a good night. Thanks for joining. Extension skeletal muscle. Yeah, I've been working on a video for that. It should be posted. But I do have the neuromuscular junction videos up right now on my TikTok. If you want to go watch those, they should be under my muscle system playlist. Are there any other quick questions here before I go? No. G. But again, thank you everybody for joining. I appreciate it. If you're just joining here, we are at the end of a live stream, but we will be back again tomorrow. So definitely give me a follow if you want to see more anatomy and physiology live streams or just any other educational live stream of any sort. Whatever you guys are interested in seeing, I am more than happy to make. And thank you everybody for liking the live. Anything else? Any other questions? But if not, thank you guys for joining. I hope to see you guys again either tomorrow or in another live. Again, if you have any other requests for lives, definitely send me some questions. Yes, you definitely need to learn anatomy to be a paramedic for sure. Will the live be posted on YouTube? Yep. My YouTube's right here, or you can just go to the link in my bio. It should be on there later tonight. Either later tonight or early tomorrow morning. It kind of just depends on the processing time and whatnot. Alrighty. Would you say it's a really hard thing to learn? Yeah, I think anatomy is pretty hard to learn. It's a lot of information. It takes a lot of practice and discipline and stuff. But alrighty, everybody. Again, thank you for joining. I will be back again tomorrow. Hopefully, I see you there. Again, we'll be doing some psychology. And then afterwards, if we have some time, we'll do some A&P. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. We'll do A&P afterwards if time permits, if anyone's interested. Friday will be a TEAS and HESI review for pre-nursing students, their pre-nursing entrance exam. So if there's any topics you want to see on that, please send me an email. But if not, have a good night, guys.